Notice of a public meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Brownsville pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act. Notice is hereby given. Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas has scheduled a regular meeting on Thursday, December 4th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. in the Commission Chambers on the second floor of the Brownsville City Hall, Old Federal Building located at 1001 East Elizabeth Street, Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas, 78520. Oh, okay. Notice of a public meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Brownsville pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act. Notice is hereby given that the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas has scheduled a regular meeting on Thursday, December 4th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. in the Commission Chambers on the second floor of the Brownsville City Hall Old Federal Building located at 1001 East Elizabeth Street, Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas, 78520.
We'll start with the roll call.
Daniel Elkin, present.
Amalia Benson. Eliza Vasquez. Aida Rodriguez.
Cesar Rodriguez.
Ruben Obel.
Pledge of Allegiance. Next is approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on November 6th, 2025.
Everyone had a chance to read over the minutes. If so, I'll entertain a motion. I second. We have a first and a second motion to approve the minutes. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Updates and comments.
Well, this evening, the updates will be provided by Mr. Samuel Nunez regarding the housing plan.
Good evening, board. A couple meetings ago, we brought before this board a housing master plan that the city is currently looking into. We had put out a request for proposals for potential consultants that we're considering. We're happy to update that we have already concluded that period, and we have even gone as far as evaluating some of those proposals, and we are scheduled to interview a total of 4 consultants that will be coming, in person to be interviewed by city staff internally. We will be providing more updates to come, but our goal is currently that we present whatever consultant we do select out of those interviews to a second meeting in January to the City Commission Board and eventually to this board as well, or before then.
Thank you.
Items for individual consideration. Consideration and action to grant a subdivision waiver for Centerline Tract subdivision located in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City of Brownsville from the municipal plating process and solely proceeding with Cameron County jurisdiction.
So as mentioned, this is a request to grant a subdivision waiver. The applicant wants to move forward solely with Cameron County jurisdiction for the review of their subdivision. And this property is fronting Centerline Road in the northernmost part of Brownsville. It's one of the arms that extends very far north. Again, fronting Centerline Road, close by Fernando East Road.
On the way to Arroyo City.
Yes.
Motion.
Make a motion to approve, Madam Chair.
Second.
We have a first and a second, motion to grant subdivision waiver. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearing and action on ordinance number 235-2025-025 to rezone from residential suburban R2 to light industrial LI to allow an existing machine shop for 0.344 acres out of Block 33, El Jardín subdivision of Brownell Tract, Share 28 of the Espiritu Santo Grant, Cameron County, Texas, located at 6628 Calvin Street, Brownsville, Texas, 78521.
Thank you. As mentioned, this is a request to rezone a property that is currently zoned as residential suburban R2 to a light industrial zoning. And the purpose for that is to continue a legally non-conforming machine shop that currently exists at that property. This property is fronting Calvin Street, which is a local street within an established neighborhood subdivision for single-family use. This is the notice that we put out to the vicinity informing of this public hearing. This is the sign that is posted physically at the property. This is a map showing a radius of who we sent out legal notice to, informing them of this public hearing. At the time, there was zero written opposition against this item. We should inform the board that as of today, or earlier today, we did receive one letter, but in support of this request. This here is the zoning map showing the property adjacent to the surrounding zoning. As you can see, the surrounding zoning is an R2, which is for residential. This is a map showing adjacent streets, Calvin Street and Xena Drive going north-south. This is a broader map, and the major street would be South Padre Island Highway, north of this property. So it's south of that. Based on our review, we consider, or our review criteria, staff did find that this request is not consistent with our comprehensive plan and future land use plan. Approval of this request would essentially create what we would refer to as a spot zone. And approval of the light industrial zoning district may allow by right certain commercial and industrial uses that would be at odds against the established residents that live in this area. Therefore, staff is recommending denial of this rezone from residential suburban to light industrial.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I suppose this has always been residential area?
In terms of the existing or surrounding uses, yes.
So this, you said this was a non-compliant.
Oh, in terms of what is there at this property, it is a mixed use, so that it is a residence, and it's also used for a commercial industrial use. For more details, the property owner or one of the people considering the property for purchase is here to provide detail on that.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone that would like to come forward to address this issue.
Ms. Eliza, we should mention that the existing use was never issued a permit to allow that.
Thank you for clarifying that. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this issue? Ma'am? You want to come forward? If you'll come forward. If you'll just state your name.
Sofía Carabeo. Yo soy la persona que está interesada en comprar este negocio. Antes que nada, quisiera agradecer la oportunidad de estar aquí en esta audiencia. Mi único interés es que esta propiedad pueda permanecer del mismo uso ordenado que se ha estado hasta este tiempo. Tiene muchos años. Para mí este es un tipo de trabajo que representa el esfuerzo de toda mi vida, no ahí, pero es a lo que yo me he dedicado y yo he observado que ahí hay un potencial porque ese negocio ha estado durante muchos años y ha tenido mucho respeto hacia la comunidad. Yo creo firmemente que cuando un espacio funciona bien, cuando se mantiene seguro y responsable, merece la oportunidad de seguir así. Y es por eso que estoy aquí para apoyar esa causa. La continuidad de uso de un lugar que ya ha demostrado que es compatible con la comunidad. Solo pido la oportunidad de trabajar y aportar al crecimiento de nuestra ciudad. Brownsville está avanzando y nosotros queremos ser parte de este avance, generando empleos, ofreciendo un servicio que nuestra comunidad necesita. Durante muchos años la gente ha salido fuera de Brownsville para trabajar, incluyendo a mi esposo. E incluso los servicios que ofrecen del negocio que nosotros queremos poner, no hay muchos. La gente tiene que salir a McAllen a buscarlos porque aquí no existen. Entonces, solo queremos pedir esa oportunidad para hacerlo con responsabilidad y seguir aportando al crecimiento de Brownsville. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias, señora Jaramillo. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this issue? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing. Second. We have a first and a second motion to close public hearing. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Can you go back to the map?
Yes, sir. Which one?
Is there any comparable businesses like,
In this vicinity, upon scanning it, analyzing, we did not find another similar use in this neighborhood.
what's there now?
To our understanding, it is a machine shop, which various welding activities take place,
And a residence.
and a
Somebody's
residence.
living on the property. too.
Correct.
But if we change the zoning to LI, we're going to be open to other industrial uses coming in if that property gets sold again.
In theory, by right, they would be able to bring in a use that whatever LI would permit, they could bring in.
Good question. So why, if there's currently if there's already a shop there, why are they requesting an approval?
The current activity or the way the property is currently used is not conforming to its current zoning, which is that of a residence. So to allow the business or the industrial component of that property to continue or to potentially sell it to someone that wants to continue that business, they are requesting basically to bring everything into compliance, this rezone change to a light industrial. Without it, essentially, the current use there is legally non-conforming.
The request for them to ask for the rezoning, was that brought upon some type of citation or brought to their attention from the city, or was it just them trying to do the right thing?
Historically, there has been attempts to submit for a CO or an occupancy permit to continue that business, but the process at some point or another was abandoned. It was never officially completed. Zoning has been brought up in the past, and therefore they are here requesting it because of staff's informing them about it.
So because of the change in ownership and the new CO, that's why this has come up.
The potential change in ownership.
One additional question, can the rezoning be bracketed just to that property?
Bracketed in the sense that we only approve it for them.
Just a donut around that property?
Approval of this request would essentially do that. Only this property would be zoned light industrial.
So
I don't know.
Nothing else around it could be could be.
Everything else would just remain the way it is now with its zoning.
But
Well,
because-
through the chair, sorry.
Or I think the question
would-
is, would it be limited to that particular use? Is the question if, or are you asking if the zoning change would limit this particular use? Because in response to that, this is a zoning change. It cannot be conditioned to where only this use would be permitted. So by changing the zoning designation to light industrial, like Mr. Nunez mentioned, it will leave the door open to any use that is permitted under LI.
We should also mention that what tends to happen once one spot zone or one zoning that doesn't, is very different from the ones that surround it gets approved, is that it begins a trend or it sets precedent for other property owners to then consider changing their zonings to something similar.
Are there other avenues for this property owner besides a spot zone, which I would understand is a more dramatic change, maybe something more along the lines of a special use permit or other ways to get to this for them?
Well, a specific use permit, the way the code is written, is only for specific uses listed in the code. It's not a way to be used as a loophole to allow a use in, like in this case, in the middle of a residential subdivision. One of the main things we want to do or achieve is to avoid any proactively avoid any situation in the future similar to Millwhite, because that's what could potentially happen. Having such high zoning will or could potentially allow uses that will create a nuisance to surrounding properties. Something else that's that I would like to mention, because we did receive calls or one call from a property owner, not so much complaining about the use, but complaining about the fact that they cannot get home insurance because the insurance agency doesn't want to sell them the coverage because they have a use that is a potential hazard. So it's already creating problems for surrounding properties. We don't have authority, let's say, targeted authority to say you're limited to only do these operations.
I assume there's opposition?
None that stated that they would be present or that they sent us a written letter of that.
So nobody present, no written opposition.
I believe Ms. Eliza made the announcement, the official then.
¿Te quiere decir algo?
Sí, solamente les quería decir que nosotros se usa Light Industry porque fue lo que nos dijeron, pero nosotros no vamos a utilizar materiales flamables, o sea, cosas peligrosas para la comunidad. Todas las personas de ahí han tenido siempre buena relación y están contentas de que estuviera el negocio ahí. Hay muchos negocios alrededor de diferentes tipos de cosas, negocios que sí manejan a una cuadra del negocio. Básicamente donde está ubicada la propiedad que quiero comprar es una cuadra. Lo demás es colonia, pero está un poquito alejada. Entonces, no va a ser, se escucha como que soldadura, como que estamos utilizando materiales peligrosísimos. No. Generalmente también trabajamos fuera, vamos a trabajar en una camioneta fuera. No es material peligroso que va a explotar todo, no manejamos ese tipo de gases. O sea, no creo yo que represente un peligro en sí para la comunidad. Y como le digo, ellos están contentos, ellos están porque se les ayuda en cuanto se necesita. Gracias.
Any further questions?
Real quick, just to clarify on the insurance issue you brought up, were you saying surrounding residences were having trouble getting insurance or the residents on the property?
We received one call from a resident whose complaint was the fact that they couldn't get insurance, not so much the operations of the business, but the fact that they couldn't get insurance.
Can you show the aerial again? It is a residential neighborhood.
Through the chair, I want to clarify, in the upcoming training that we're putting together in January or February, we will explain that the very history of zoning is to avoid incompatible uses. And the origin is precisely trying not to mix residential uses with industrial uses for pollutants and nuances and noise, etc., fumes. So that's why staff is recommending denial. It's like a very clear case for us, even if there hasn't been a complaint so far, or even if the neighbors may not know that they can complain. Truth is that the new business is essentially buying an illegal business because it has never been approved to be industrial in the middle of a neighborhood.
Thank you. Any further questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion to go with staff recommendation and deny the request.
I second. We have a first and a second motion to deny zoning request. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearing and action on ordinance number 235-2025-026 to rezone from residential single-family R1 to residential transition R3 to allow for a townhome development for a 2.82 acre tract of land, more or less out of Block 188, El Jardín re-subdivision of parts of shares 23, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 25, Espiritu Santo Grant, Cameron County, Texas, located at 4935 Salida de Luna, Brownsville, Texas, 78526.
Thank you. As mentioned, this is a rezoning from a current residential single-family property to a residential transition R3 property. The intent behind this request is to develop a townhome development or neighborhood. This property is fronting Salida de Luna Road, which is considered a slash collector local street. This is the public notice that we put out to the vicinity there, informing them of this public hearing. This is the physical sign that has been posted at the property. This is the aerial map. At the time of this map, there was zero written opposition from the folks that submitted directly to city secretary. Staff also did not receive any letters in favor or in opposition of the request. This is the zoning map. Adjacent properties to the east, west, and south are also R1 single-family residential, and we have one agricultural property to the northeast of this,
Which is a school.
which is a school campus, yes. This is the broader map. The major street here would be Ruben M. Torres Boulevard, south of this property. This request, staff does find that it is consistent with our comprehensive plan and future land use plan. Staff is recommending approval of from residential single family to residential transition.
This is a public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address this issue, if you would come forward. I motion to close public hearing. We have a first and a second motion to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. The board have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. We have a motion to approve. Sure, yes, I second. We have a first and a second motion to approve the zoning from R1 to R3. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearing and action on ordinance number 235-2025-027 to rezone from residential single-family R1 to regional center to allow for a commercial development for Lot 1, Block 1, Rabel subdivision, Cameron County, Texas, located at Lomax Road, Brownsville, Texas, 78526.
As mentioned, this property is currently zoned residential single family and is requesting a regional center commercial district for a potential commercial development. Staff has not received any specifics as to what type of commercial development is taking place, but we have been informed that they are requesting this rezoning to potentially sell it to someone else. This property is fronting Lomax Road, which is considered a local street in this area. This is the notice of the public hearing that was posted in the vicinity or sent out to them. This is the physical sign at the property. This is an aerial map. At the time of this map, we did not receive any written opposition or written letter in favor of this request, and 14 total mailouts were sent out. This is the zoning map. As you can see, it is a bit mixed with R1 to the north, east, and west. And there are also other RC districts similar to the request that the property owner is making for this property to the south and to the southwest. This is the broader map. And as you can see, the most major street is the interstate itself, Interstate 69 East. This request is consistent with the existing comprehensive plan and future land use plan. Staff is recommending approval of this rezoning from residential single family to regional center.
Go back to the previous map.
Yes, ma'am.
So this property has frontage on Lomax and also on Cortezville Road, but it does not have frontage on the expressway because TxDOT uses that as their yard for holding material.
That seems to be the case, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that'd like to address this, if you'll come forward. If you'll state your name, please.
Hi, my name is William Swantner. I'm a broker representing the Rabel family. The building material or the road materials that are being stored on the west side of the property between the service road and our property. We've been in discussion with TxDOT. They are willing to discuss granting us a driveway easement through there so we have direct access to the service road. And but they would only do it if we were seeking a zoning change to RC. So this is what we're doing. We think that's a more consistent use or a better zoning for the property's location and the uses surrounding it. To the north, even though it's zoned R1, there is several non-conforming industrial type uses just on the north side of Cortezville, I think is the name of that street. So there's not really a whole lot of discipline about R1 there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartner. Yes, sir. You'll just.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Mejia. I live at 8750 Lomax. And my family and I, we fully support developing that area for commercial land and commercial use. So we would like to see that happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else? Yes, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Jenny. I'm a resident and property owner on Lomax, slightly north of this area. Although the property that is in question and some of the properties that are immediately across from it on Cortezville Road do appear to have non-conformant light industrial going on. There is plenty of residential single-family homes in the area, both on Cortezville and all along Lomax. That is basically the main driveway into that neighborhood. I've lived there since 1996. My grandparents built one of the first houses there on Lomax. And we've seen just more and more single-family homes being built along that street. Just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a young mother stop me on my way out the door to work. She was looking for a house for sale. And there were no houses for sale. There was one just on the corner and it had just recently sold. There is demand for continued single-family homes. There's a duplex that was just built on Cortezville, directly across the street from this property. My concern is that if it is developed as commercial, it's only going to increase traffic on those side roads on Lomax and Cortezville. Even if they give you a driveway at TxDOT through their gravel yard, I'm concerned about children. I've seen young kids in the new duplex area. And, you know, we have school buses going through there. We've already seen the speed limit raised to 30 miles an hour on Lomax. And I guess that's to accommodate perhaps light commercial going on. It really is mostly families that live there and have lived there for a good long while. I would definitely oppose this change. I feel like it would be just an impetus to further commercialize and industrialize this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Not, I need a motion to close public hearing. I motion to close public hearing. Ma'am, did you want to say something? Oh, if you'll come forward, please.
I'm here. I lived there on Cortezville and for about 30 years. And I really don't approve of it. I really would not let any commercial there. The fact is that with the buses of the school, like the lady was mentioning, it's very hard for the buses to turn, especially between Cortezville and Lomax. And another thing that we have already there, some trailers, 18-wheeler trailers going through there. And usually when they turn, they take the whole space and they go over the yards through the ditch and they make big holes. The street is a mess. Every time they go through there, there was a lot of holes in the street. And it's only just because of the 18-wheelers they go through there. And the traffic is like, I mean, it is, but like I said, the school buses and all that, and I don't know how it is going to affect us on the taxes. And I mean, I don't think, as my point of view, that it will be something that we would like there. Our neighborhood is very quiet and it's peaceful right now as it is. We have it now with the 18-wheelers. It's right there across where that lot is. It's just right there in the corner. And some trailers do fall and they take a long time and they stop traffic just to make a turn to go either to the freeway or try to go a shortcut to 803. And we have to be sometimes waiting for them to finish or they just make holes in the street because they turn and it's not enough room for 18-wheeler to turn in that street. Now, if they're gonna turn it into something old commercial with more traffic, we're just gonna be lost there with all that traffic. And it's hard for the school buses to turn. They do, but they have to either go reverse and try to make a turn through Lomax to Cortez or through Cortez to Lomax. So I mean, I don't really approve of it, but we'll see how it goes. And then if they're gonna start raising the taxes and all that for us, and it's very hard. I mean, the road there is very narrow for everybody to turn there. And especially in that turn right there where the 18-wheelers are, that's the yard, 18-wheelers, we have to turn some cars come from that side and we cannot even see them. They're coming from that, so we have to make a long turn to make sure that we don't hit onto to another car. So imagine if we have a lot of traffic there, it's gonna be very hard for us. And the street, like I said, it's a mess.
Right.
And it's just only with 18-wheelers. So, I mean, that's what I needed to speak up.
Thank you. We
Thank you for
appreciate your
hearing.
comments. I am familiar with the area. I do understand that both those streets are pretty narrow.
Yes. Yes, they are. And especially it's the dish right there and it's a mess. I think we're fine the way we are right now, but I mean, let's see how it turns out. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address this issue? Yes, ma'am, if you'll come forward. You'll state your name for us, please.
Yes, my name is Caitlin Mejia, and I'm a resident on Cortezville. Our neighborhood is made up of elderly residents, retired individuals living on fixed incomes, and families with young children. This is a community built around stability, safety, and affordability. Now that this property has been purchased for commercial use, we're being told our property taxes might go up. That is deeply concerning. Many of us have already been struggling, and with rising costs of groceries, utilities, and insurance, and basic living expenses, adding higher property taxes on top of that could push longtime residents out of their own homes. A commercial property in the middle of a residential neighborhood doesn't just affect traffic and noise, it affects our wallets. It places a financial burden on the people who have lived here for years and simply cannot afford another increase. It also affects families raising children here. Higher taxes, increase commercial activities, make it harder for parents to provide stability, and it changes the peaceful environment we chose for our kids. We are not against development or progress, but it must be done responsibly and with respect for the people who already live there. A commercial project should not come at the cost of pushing out elderly residents, overburdening parents, or disrupting the family environment we work hard to maintain. We are asking for this decision to be reconsidered and for the concerns of the community to be taken seriously. Our home stability and our families deserve protection. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else that wants to address this issue? Go ahead.
Again, I'm William Swantner. I certainly appreciate the concerns. Thank you. I certainly appreciate the concerns of these people who are living in the neighborhood. I do have some reservations about property taxes increasing on the residential side of the road. I've been doing appraisal work since 1985 and the last 30 years here in the Valley. And it's very clear that, zoning plays a very large part in how a parcel is considered by the market and the value that that market attaches to it as a result. So if your property is zoned R1, then you are going to be treated as if you are and are a single family residence, and your real estate taxes, property taxes will be aligned with those of similar use. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll remind the audience that the city has no control over taxes. That is under the Cameron Appraisal District. Is there anyone else that wants to address this issue? Yes, sir. You'll come forward and give us your name.
Thank you. My name is Joshua Jenny. I'm also married to my wife over here, who just mentioned earlier, Deborah Jenny. Wanting to ask about how, since this is a mixed zone area, how this one in particular will help to improve the existing residential zone and the commercial zone, since it is mixed. What is the future plans that the city has for this area? It is mixed, and I was kind of curious what your thoughts were as is mixed bag of area that we have. What you guys thought.
I mean, I can't speak on behalf of the city. I'm not
Right.
sure what
So
what plans are for that
there are
area.
no imminent plans for this area right now. The only guidance would be in the future, in the near future, it would be the new comprehensive plan. In the absence of that, it would be the current comprehensive plan. So if you could describe what's the current designation in the comp plan for this area, but it's a very broad vision. It's not specific to this area. It paints with a white brush a large swath of land. So if a planner could please pull up the map for the comprehensive plan and take a look at the designation. So, my question is for Martin or Sam.
Yes, so when we say that the request is consistent with the existing comprehensive plan and future land use plan, the ones that are currently in existence or adopted, we're saying that this commercial zoning would make sense or aligns with what we saw at that point for the purposes of that property. Specifically, our future land use plan categorizes this property as a gateway corridor, meaning that this corridor would give access or provide access to commercial uses that want to come into that area. And that was probably very intentional, given that there is that interstate to the south of it.
I'm not sure that quite answered your question, but that's the best we can do.
If I understand correctly, it sounds like it's wanting to be used as a way of like a corridor into residential area that has mixed areas, but in the front, trying to use it for commercial purposes. I'm understanding.
So the term that was used, not necessarily that the entire area is going to be a corridor. It was just a term that was created by the consultants at the time. But basically the description or the definition of that is that this is an area that has very good access to commercial uses of this nature. Yeah.
And I imagine mostly because it's so close to the expressway.
Since the purpose is wanting to be used for possible commercial usage, what if there's a compromise instead to have the land still be sold, but maybe it could be sold, let's say, to the city, like as a park or some other type of asset that would still be focused on more for the residents that live there, but still allow the business owner to be able to sell the property, achieving their goal?
That is a much bigger question. This is a rezoning, case or request in terms of the city entering a partnership or some kind of agreement for the sale of this land to the city. That is not in question today.
Yeah, right now there are no plans to buy land for a park in that area. We should limit our comments to the specific zoning case. It's not necessarily a back and forth or dialogue with the staff. We should address the applicant and the chair and the commission if possible.
The reason why I brought it up is because it's currently being used for asphalt for the city. And I figured since it already is being used, at least in part for city use, I thought maybe we could expand it for a more specific purpose.
But it's not being used by the city. It's being used by the state of Texas.
Sorry, state of
TxDOT.
Texas. But since it is being used by the powers that be, I figured maybe we could go with something that's more formal, that does allow it to be sold in a way that does bring in money for the business owner, such.
That would be huge to go through TxDOT to do that. Do you want to make one more quick comment, Mr. Swatner? You'll come up.
It just occurred to me, the other person that was talking about the difficulty in navigating turns over there, there's already been right-of-way taken from the corners of the parcel to widen the ingress and egress from Lomax and Cortezville to the service road. So the city has just not gotten around to doing something with it, so.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to address this issue? I motion to close public hearing, public comments, sorry. Need a second?
I second the motion.
So we have a first and a second motion to close, public comments. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Does the board have any further questions or comments? Oh, yeah. I mean, the one thing that I think of now is even though it's R1 now, if you got a subdivision in there, it would still affect traffic. So no matter what, you're going to get more traffic, whether it's residents or commercial. And we have no idea what the plans are for the commercial. And I'll remind you that after whatever happens today, there's still 2 readings before the city commission. So whatever happens today, you always have the opportunity to go before the city commission and voice your opinions. What is the wish of the board?
I motion to go with staff recommendation to approve the rezoning.
I second that motion.
We have a first and a second motion to approve the zoning change from single family to regional center. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearing and action on ordinance number 235-2025-902 to rezone from agriculture AG to regional center RC to allow for a commercial development for 13.142 acres, more or less out of the southeast corner of Block 218, Fresno's Land and Irrigation Company subdivision, Cameron County, Texas, located at Paredes Line Road, Brownsville, Texas, 78526.
Good evening, Commissioners. The request is to rezone from agriculture to regional center for a proposed commercial development. This time, we don't have any type of building plans for it. It's just for a proposed commercial development. The property is facing Paredes Line Road. So there's a little background to this case. Back in 2009, a request to rezone from dwelling to light industrial was approved. No development had occurred on that property, even up until the adoption of the Unified Development Code in December 2020. The property was still vacant. Therefore, the zoning was reverted back to agriculture. And so in that area, and you'll see in an aerial map soon, that it is pretty vacant around there. However, there's a development trend going on in that area, namely 3 large subdivisions that are going to have residential and some commercial components to it. Staff, as required by state law, staff sent out notices to property owners, and we also posted a physical sign on the property. We notified 4 property owners within the area, and we received no formal opposition to the request. Again, the area is predominantly vacant. It is zoned agriculture in all directions. This is a better view of where we're talking about. Again, this is in a very vacant area, but there are proposed subdivisions that are going on. It's directly across from the Palo Alto Battlefield National Historic Park along Paredes Line Road, north of Interstate 69. And then again, even closer image of it, as you can see, the area is mostly vacant with the railroad to the rear. The subject property is located in the emerging city central district. So this district is predominantly residential and commercial uses in the form of community facilities, so such as schools, parks, preserves, things that serve the community around it, that serve the residents close to it. Due to the proposed residential developments that we mentioned, those large 3 developments, namely the Estrella Master Plan Community, the Montage Estate Subdivision, and the Paredes Ranch Subdivision. All of those are located within approximately 3-mile radius of the subject property. So we know that there's a high demand for residential use in the area. And so although the applicant is requesting to rezone to regional center, staff is proposing that, or recommending approval of a zoning change to corridor commercial. So instead of going from ag to regional center, we're requesting approval of ag to corridor commercial due to the district's closer compatibility with existing and upcoming land uses, as well as the zoning districts in the vicinity. If you recall from last month's presentation, we had something similar. The regional center designation allows for larger regional drawing commercial uses. So these are like your big box stores, your car dealerships, things like that. Whereas corridor commercial is more specific to serving the neighborhood, so it might be in the form of restaurants, cafes, offices, businesses like that. So like we said, staff is recommending disapproval from ag to regional center and alternatively recommending approval to corridor commercial.
Can you go back to the previous slide?
Or you want to more zoomed out one?
That's fine. There's not anything up and down in that north of 550 that's regional corridor, right?
That's correct.
And La Estrella is going to have an outlet to Paredes Line Road. Is it about where that white spot is?
Yes, approximately.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone who would wish to address this issue, if you'd come forward. Yes, sir. If you'll give us your name.
My name is Ricardo Hinojosa. We're coming from Corpus Christi and we're owners of that property. My wife and I, my girlfriend of 60 years, but my wife of 55 years. We have lived a long life. We want to enjoy what little life we have left, obviously. We're never try to prevent progress. If it wouldn't be for progress, we wouldn't have the building like this. I don't remember it being this fancy before. But we're in agreement with it being commercial. We see the area around, there's a few businesses, not real close, but eventually, and we know that land is very limited. Our main concern, of course, being seniors and my wife being 100% disabled, is the taxes. And when you go to commercial, obviously your taxes are going to be up and we're limited income. That's pretty much what y'all don't deal with the taxes, the adjusting or anything like that. What area would I have to go to deal with that?
The Cameron Appraisal District in San Benito.
Cameron Appraisal.
They're located in San Benito.
Okay. And something else, as far as I was thinking, if the worst comes to worse, the possibility of leasing, you all wouldn't deal with that either?
No, sir.
Okay. And that would be probably that same department?
No. To lease the land?
Yes.
No, you would have to contact a realtor and have them help you.
Okay, okay. Yeah, very good. Life has been good to us. And like I said, we've got a few years left and we want to enjoy it, but we don't want to be in the stopping progress. Progress is everywhere, regardless of what people, and we know that we all have our differences and have different cases, different problems. And it's good that there is a place like this where we can vent concerns. Of course, our concern being elderly would be the taxes going up. But I thank you very much for your attention and your time, and that's pretty much all I have to say.
So you're okay with
Yes.
changing it to commercial
Yes, absolutely.
corridor instead of regional?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
thank you
Hinojosa.
very much.
Is there anyone else who wants to address the board? Public hearing.
Motion to close public comments.
Seconded.
We have a first and a second motion to close public comments. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Does the board have any other questions?
Madam Chair, I do just, I didn't think I caught it. Extremely bad hearing on my left side. Did the witness just say he owned that property or he just owned surrounding property?
No, he
owns
owns the
that
property. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I misunderstood.
So he
He's not
owns
the
surrounding
property owner.
property and he was worried about the repercussions if this gets approved.
Yes, sir, that's my understanding.
The staff is recommending, commercial corridor instead of regional corridor.
That's correct.
Does the board have any questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion. Just, no, not RC. Well, staff is recommending commercial corridor and not regional corridor. Do you want to change your motion?
Madam Chair, I have another question.
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify,
Yes.
is there an assessment made by the city how this approval would affect the historical park?
No, sir, not at this time. There hasn't been.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the zoning change from agriculture to commercial corridor. Need a second? No, you made a first.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I oppose.
Let the record show that Commissioner Obel opposed. Motion carried.
Public hearing and action on ordinance number 235-2025-903 to rezone from agriculture AG to commercial corridor CC to allow for commercial development for an approximate 43.72 acres comprised of approximately 38.31 acres out of the residue of Reserve B of Villa del Norte subdivision, 1.53 acres out of Lot 1, Oklahoma Station subdivision number 1, and 3.88 acres out of Reserve A of Oklahoma Station subdivision number 1, Cameron County, Texas, located at Stillman Road, Brownsville, Texas, 78526.
Yes, so this request is to rezone a tract off Stillman Road, Stillman and 77, from agriculture to commercial corridor to allow for a commercial development. As required by state law, we created signs just like this one and posted a physical sign on the property for residents to see. And then we also sent out a 53 mail outs to property owners within a 200-foot radius. We didn't receive a formal opposition, but we did receive a letter, which I believe each of you should have a copy of the letter. The adjacent property owner expressed concerns about her livestock and the impacts that development could have on, potentially have on her livestock and property. The surrounding area, the area to the north is residential single family. The area to the northwest over there is also is R3. And then we have regional commercial along the Expressway 77. We also have residential estate further south and then a residential single family to the southeast. The area is located in North Brownsville, just south of the Brownsville Sports Park and directly across from the 77 Flea Market. And here's a closer view of it. You can see through the aerial image, there's single family uses in the surrounding area, mostly to the north where you have smaller lots, also single family, and then to the south you have some larger lots. You have a couple car dealerships around the expressway, which is appropriate because those are zoned RC. And again, this request is corridor commercial, which is a less intense use than RC. The city's future land use plan designated the area as an emerging city central district and linkage corridor. And the purpose of those is a balanced mix of services and support to residents while maintaining the primarily residential character. Land uses in the linkage corridor are primarily commercial. So we feel like this request is consistent with the future land use plan. Therefore, staff is recommending approval to rezone from agriculture to corridor commercial.
And I am correct in saying that the property owner did not initiate this. It was coming from the city. Is that correct?
Is that right? Does the city initiate it?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
This is a city-initiated case.
This is a public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address this issue. Motion. Close public.
Motion to close public hearing?
Second.
We have a first and second motion to close public comments. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Does the board have any questions? I will acknowledge that we did receive the letter from Mrs. Stillman Tidwell. We appreciate her comments. No further questions. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the staff recommendation to rezone from agriculture to corridor commercial.
We have a first and a second motion to approve the rezoning from agriculture to commercial corridor. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearing in action on ordinance number 2025-235.119. This is to amend the Unified Development Code, Article 5, Supplemental Regulations, Section 5.5, Flood Damage Prevention, subsections 5.512, duties and responsibilities of the floodplain administrator, 5.5.15, provisions for flood hazard reduction, and 5.6.8, general performance criteria for stormwater management, to enhance the existing stormwater management program and dealing with related matters.
Thank you. We were hoping to have a representative from Half and Associates present this, but in lieu of that, I'll do my best to answer any questions that you all have.
Excuse me, I'm here on behalf of Half. This is Ann Whitco. I'm with Half Associates. I'm here to present.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, sorry about that.
You're fine.
All right. If you can just help me with advanced slides when.
Yeah, just tell me when to say, or just say next.
Perfect. So good evening, Commission. My name is Ann Whitco. I'm a Water Resources Team Leader with Half Associates in our Brownsville office. I'll be presenting an overview of the proposed changes to the Unified Development Code in support of the City of Brownsville's application to FEMA to join the Community Rating System, or CRS program. So for context, I'm going to start with a little background on the CRS program. I'll try to keep it pretty brief, but I think it's important to understand what the program is and why we're requesting the changes. And then I'll get into the specific changes to the code, the UDC code that are being requested. Next slide, please. So the CRS is a program, is a voluntary incentive program that encourages community floodplain management practices that exceed the minimum requirements for the National Flood Insurance Program, or NFIP. The goal of the program is to reduce and avoid flood damages to property owners, to strengthen and support the insurance aspects of the NFIP, and to foster comprehensive floodplain management strategies. While enacting higher regulatory standards for new developments can cause challenges and additional expenses for growth in the community, they're important in that they protect existing residents from worsening flooding conditions. They make the community as a whole more resilient with respect to flood risk, and they provide benefits to community members through reduced flood insurance premiums for communities that are enrolled in the CRS program. And I'll give some specifics on that in a couple of slides. Next. So to participate in the CRS program, communities must provide documentation on their stormwater management program and what activities are in place that help advance the 3 goals of the CRS. In total, there's 19 creditable activities, and they're organized under 4 categories that are listed on the slide. And so the first category is related to public information activities described in the 300 series. Next, the 400 series addresses mapping and regulations. And basically encourages communities to provide flood risk data beyond firm maps, preserve open spaces and significant flood hazard areas, things of that nature. The 500 series covers specific flood damage reduction activities such as comprehensive flood management planning, relocating and retrofitting flood-prone structures, and maintaining drainage systems. And then the 600 series covers warning and response activities. Next slide. So this slide shows a breakdown of the points possible under each of the 4 categories that I talked about on the previous slide, with the maximum and average points earned in each subcategory amongst Texas entities that are currently participating in the CRS program. And then the last column just provides percentage of Texas CRS communities that received some credit for each subcategory. Next slide. The left column then shows the point ranges that you must achieve to achieve the points that you need to add up to achieve different CRS class ratings, and then the corresponding flood insurance premium reduction for each class is in the third column. So for entities that are able to score at least 4,500 points and achieve a class 1 rating, residents that are within those jurisdictional boundaries would be eligible for a 45% premium reduction on their flood insurance. For your knowledge, there are currently no entities in the state of Texas that have a class 1 rating. Currently, Brownsville residents spend just over $1.9 million per year on flood insurance premiums, which consists of 3,180 total policies. So based on this value, potential cost savings to residents based on varying CRS classes is presented in the column on the right-hand side of this table. It's anticipated that Brownsville would likely come into the program as a Class 8, which would translate to a 10% reduction in insurance premiums and an annual savings to residents of over $187,000 a year. And again, that's an annual savings to residents, not just a one-time value. Additionally,
you just said that most of the residents are going to fall under Class 8?
No. So what it is the city gets a class rating based on their stormwater management practice. And so whatever the city achieves, all the residents that are within the jurisdictional boundaries get that reduction on their flood insurance premium. But it's based on the city's class rating. It's not on a resident by resident basis.
Thank you.
Sure. And so, like I said, we think that with the program that the city has right now and the couple of changes we need to make to the UDC code, they'd come in around a Class 8, but likely as the city continues to strengthen their program and get used to getting the documentation that's required to prove basically that you implement the practices that you have listed in your program, they'd be able to increase that class rating over time. Next slide. So NFIP participation is fairly high across the state. CRS is a little less prevalent. Currently, there are 219 counties out of 254 total in Texas that are NFIP participants, and 1,042 out of 1,172 total communities that are participants. And that's what all the blue color you see is. The blue polygons are counties that are NFIP participants, and the blue dots are the cities. Of those same, 1,172 total communities, only 74 currently are enrolled in the CRS program. And those are the yellow stars that you see on the map. They're largely centered around major metropolitan areas like Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, around Corpus area. The 2 highest rated CRS programs within the state right now are City of Dallas with a Class 3 rating and the City of Grand Prairie with a Class 4 rating. And those are both cities that we've helped. They started at Class 7, and we've helped the last few years to get them to those Class 3, Class 4 ratings. Next slide. So the initial prerequisites to enroll in the CRS program are that the community must be an NFIP participant. They must submit an application to FEMA, and they must provide documentation on their stormwater management program and support CRS program goals that include practices that exceed minimum NFIP requirements. The city currently meets all of these requirements to enter under Class 10, but to meet the Class 8 requirements, there are some minor revisions that need to be made to the Stormwater Management Ordinance section of the UDC code. Specifically, there needs to be a minimum 1-foot freeboard requirement for all new and existing manufactured homes, machinery, and equipment. And then that's pretty much it. The remaining Class 8 requirements have been met. Next slide. So these next 5 slides, I'm going to talk about the specific portions of the code that we're proposing to make modifications to. And so they address the change I meant that's needed to meet Class 8 requirements. And then there's some other proposed changes that will just help strengthen the city's CRS application. And potentially get to a higher rating, which translates to a greater savings to residents in reduced flood insurance premiums. So each slide structured so that the left side shows the existing ordinance language and the right side has the modification typed out in red. So first, the existing ordinance states that no new construction, improvements, or placement of fill within zones A1 through 30 and AE on a firm, unless it is demonstrated that the cumulative impacts will not increase the water surface elevation of the base flood elevation, or BFE, by more than 1 foot at any point within the community. So this section was modified to only allow for a 0.1 foot of elevation change in the BFE instead of 1 foot. Next, where the ordinance currently states that all new construction or substantial improvements shall be constructed with electrical, heating, ventilation, plumbing, and air conditioning equipment and other service facilities that are designed and or located so as to prevent water from entering or accumulating within the components during conditions of flooding. This section was modified to incorporate a more general term for any sort of equipment. Has to be elevated and kept be flood proof so that water can't enter that area. And then it further emphasized the need to elevate the listed infrastructure by at least 2 feet above the BFE, which is consistent with other existing language within the ordinance, but we're just kind of reinforcing that in this section. Next slide. So the 2-foot BFE requirement was further reinforced under this section, specifying the requirements for manufactured homes and requirements for on-site waste disposal systems was strengthened to state that they shall not be located within the floodplain. The bottom 2 bullets on this slide highlight new additions to the ordinance. So the first one prohibits the placement of hazardous materials within the floodplain and is consistent with practices related to Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or TPDS, permitting requirements. So this isn't anything really drastically new either. The last bullet on this slide would require that any placement of fill within a special flood hazard area shall be prohibited unless the fill is mitigated by a compensatory storage requirement at a 1-to-1 ratio. So this recommendation does create an additional hurdle for new development within the floodplain. However, it's essential in keeping residents safe. It prevents new developments from causing negative impacts to surrounding areas. And so new development can still occur, but this measure ensures that they're not worsening flooding conditions for existing residents. Next slide. All 3 of the proposed changes on this slide are new to the ordinance, but reflect either ongoing practices or reinforce previously discussed language additions. First, all areas within a floodplain that are excavated or filled, it will be required that a registered professional engineer certifies that the activity will not increase the BFE, or base flood elevation, by more than 0.1 feet. The engineer must also certify that the project will have no adverse impact to the drainage on, from, or through adjacent properties. So this requirement further reinforces the modification that I discussed on that first slide.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can you repeat what you just said about the 2 feet? Or the highest adjacent?
So this one didn't have the 2-foot requirement. The 2-foot requirement is related to new developments within a significant flood hazard area must be 2 feet above the BFE, and so that includes manufactured homes, equipment, things of that nature. What this one is saying is that an engineer has to certify that you are not causing any adverse impact to drainage on, from, or through any other adjacent property as a result of any excavation or fill that's occurring on your site. Does that answer your?
Well, I had a question because under residential construction, it says, and I don't know if this is new, it says all residential structures that are constructed outside a designated special flood hazard area shall be elevated 2 feet above the highest adjacent grade. And I know that we've had citizens come forward and complain, and it was residential homes, and there was a commercial property that was constructed right next to them, and their elevation was higher, so when it was raining, that runoff was sloping down to the residences.
Yeah, so the 2-foot requirement is to get that property above the base flood elevation. But what this goes further to say, though, is that you can't just fill your property to take you out of the floodplain if you're going to cause a negative effect on an adjacent property. So you would have to create storage capacity, which is that other modification that I mentioned, that compensatory storage at a 1-to-1 ratio. You basically would have to create the storage capacity that you're eliminating by elevating your property on your site so that you are not causing a negative impact to anybody else around you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so I think we're on the second bullet, which is that it should be, it will be unlawful to dump, deposit, or otherwise cause any trash, landscape, debris, or other materials to be placed in any stream, channel, ditch, pond, or basin that regularly or periodically carries or stores water. This is also consistent with Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permitting requirements, and I think is kind of a common sense thing that's already being enacted by city staff. The last one on this slide notes that all manufactured home parks shall be designed to be reasonably safe from flooding. This isn't a drastic change either. This is just recommended language from FEMA to include in ordinances for compliance with CRS. Next slide. So this is another new requirement specifically addressing critical facilities, which was not previously in the ordinance. Critical facilities include emergency service facilities, facilities that house populations that are vulnerable or difficult to evacuate, facilities that produce, use, or store highly volatile, toxic, flammable, or explosive materials, and facilities that are essential for providing or restoring normal services. So the proposed requirement would state that such facilities should be located outside the limits of the 500-year floodplain to the extent possible, or if that's not possible, it must be elevated to 3 feet or more above the base flood elevation. And then it further stipulates that access routes to such facilities must be elevated to or above the base flood elevation, along with any utility and sanitary facilities, emergency generators, and other vital equipment. Next slide. And this is the last one. So this has proposed modifications that will require all roadway improvements within significant flood hazard areas to be constructed at or above the base flood elevation. And then it provides some specific guidelines for design documentation that are consistent with what city engineering already requires. Finally, the last major modification reflects requirements that are included in the city's drainage policy manual and have been implemented for a number of years, but we're asking it to be codified in the ordinance. Currently, the existing ordinance states very general requirements to minimize stormwater flows from new developments and requires developers to manage peak flow rates to the maximum extent practical. The proposed language will match the drainage policy in which stormwater flow rates for sites over a half an acre must match pre-development flow rates for a 2, 10, 25, and 50-year rainfall event. So those are all of the modifications that I have to present. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to take them.
Any other questions? Martin, do we have, we're addressing mobile home parks in here, but are we still allowing mobile home subdivisions?
Yes, they are permitted by the UDC. There's that flexibility in the code.
And then who is the flood administrator?
I
What
don't know
department?
exactly. I don't know. It falls under the engineering department.
City engineering?
Esther Valle, I believe, is the floodplain administrator. She's under
Yes, I
the
believe so.
engineering public works.
Do we have any further questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. We don't have anybody here for public.
Well, because it is a text amendment, still close the public hearing,
Okay,
even though there's no one present.
got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. I make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
We have a first and second motion to close public hearing. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. If the board doesn't have any other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve as staff recommends.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second motion to approve ordinance number 2025-235.119. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearing in action on ordinance number 2025-235.120 to amend the Unified Development Code, Article 5, Supplemental Regulations, Section 5.3, Signs, Subsection 5.3.4.a, Prohibited Signs, Inset 4, Bandit Sign and Snipe Sign, to supplement the existing definition and prohibition of bandit and snipe signs to establish civil penalties for violators of this ordinance and dealing with related matters.
Thank you. As mentioned, this comes as a result of a House bill being passed by the state. Our current UDC does have it in place where we do prohibit snipe signs or bandit signs. What this House bill is essentially doing is that it's slightly expanding the definition of person and even the definition of what a bandit sign is. What is new and what this text amendment is bringing is the establishment of civil penalties. So this is establishing 3 levels of civil penalties that will be determined and enforced by a municipal court. Our current UDC, as mentioned, does have a definition, but it does not have any civil penalties attached to that prohibition. This is the example of what is currently in our UDC. Highlighted in yellow, an example to the right of what a bandit sign essentially is. This is what we're changing in terms of the definition of what a person is. Should be mentioned that even if, I should say, this text amendment is adopted and then enforced, political signs are protected. So this would not affect political signs that are adjacent or along a right-of-way area. This is further examples of what those civil penalties entail. Part of the civil penalties is this requirement that the city must issue a written notice or citation warning the person or the owner of such sign that they have a set period of time to remove the sign. The set period of time that we are giving at this time or at this moment is 14 calendar days. So the person would have 14 calendar days to remove the snipe sign or the prohibited sign or the unauthorized sign as defined by this ordinance. Failure to do so then gives way to the violations that the civil penalties would bring in and that the judge would eventually enforce on them. This is an example of the issue that we're seeing with bandit signs in the city. The main concern here is really that it's taking a lot of city staff resources and time to go out there and remove them. We basically want to uphold the legitimate sign permitting process. We want to prevent clutter along our public right-of-way areas. And we also want to protect pedestrians from potential hazard of one of these signs blowing into a street and causing an accident. Staff is recommending approval of this text amendment.
It would be up to the code enforcement officers to monitor this.
At this time, there are 3 departments that oversee the removal of bandit signs. It would be planning, engineering, and public works. It is still yet to be determined once the text amendment is adopted, who maybe city manager's office would select to go out there and cite and remove signs. But at this time, it is 3 departments that at one point or another go out there and remove them.
Public comment?
Second?
We have a first and a second excuse me, motion to close public comments. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Board have any further questions?
I do, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So you said that political signs aren't covered.
Yes, sir.
Does the city have an ordinance about placing signs at a certain time frame? From this date to this date only,
That would limit political signs or just any sign in general?
political signs, campaign signs?
Not to my knowledge, though Mr. Martinez present probably to provide.
The UDC itself doesn't have a section for political signs because it cites the provisions that are in state law. State law does provide a limitation or in a certain amount of, a timeframe that, for which, political signs can be up.
I ask because there's been plenty of folks over the years who complain that they go up way too early and they stay there way too long before the election after.
Mhm.
I'm just curious as to the enforcement in regards to these versus the enforcement to those. That's it, thank you.
Thank you.
So we don't have any kind of ordinance for them to take them off after election? I mean, there's still a lot of political signs around the city.
Well, right now, code enforcement does take up political signs. Political signs are just not left out there to stay on the right of way. We do have a section in our department where code enforcement goes and drops them off and we contact the candidate so that they can go and pick them up. We just don't discard them. But, I mean, in the end, it's still only 3 staff members to cover an entire city.
Those signs are just on city property that they enforce?
So, as per state law, political signs are only allowed on private property. If the property owner permits the candidate to place them on their property, they're not allowed on public property or on public right of way.
Any further questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So move, Madam Chair. To approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second motion to approve ordinance number 2025-235.120. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearing in action on ordinance number 2025-235.121 to amend the Unified Development Code, Article 4, zoning regulations, Section 4.2 zoning procedures, subsection 4.2.1 noticing hearings and action, inset A, noticing requirements, to incorporate regulations that modify zoning noticing procedures for zoning atlas amendments in accordance with House Bill 24 and dealing with related matters.
So this text amendment again comes as a result of a House bill being passed. Currently, when someone wants to come before this board with a rezone request, we are required as per state law to send out legal notices by the mail and also publish it in the newspaper, for example. This House bill makes it to where municipalities must also post a physical sign at the property that is being requested to change zones. This applies to individual zoning cases or even multiple lots that are being requested to be rezoned, such as the case for an entire subdivision that has multiple lots. In the event that the city wishes to rezone, or a city-initiated case that wishes to rezone the entire city, this House bill would not require the city to literally go out to every parcel in the city to place a physical sign. This would only apply to individual cases that come before this board and the city commission. This House bill does stipulate certain dimensions that must be met. Those dimensions are 24 inches by 48 inches. Again, it must be placed at the property, or it could also be placed at the right-of-way location if it's the case that it's addressing multiple lots at once. The bill does not stipulate the language that must be used. It kind of leaves it flexible to the city to decide what to do. Our city has been using it from the day that it was adopted. As you can see, some of these rezoning cases presented today already had that physical sign. We are essentially just wanting to codify that to bring it into compliance and make it official. Again, the text or the language that we're using in these public hearings, as you can see, is as an example in this presentation. Essentially, it has the date and time of the meeting, the location of the meeting, the request that is put on the agenda, and also some contact information if a property owner in that vicinity would have questions for staff to answer regarding that case. These are a few examples, as you've already seen earlier in the meeting. This is the language itself that we are proposing to put into our UDC. At this time, staff is recommending approval of this text amendment.
Close public comment.
We have a first and a second motion to close public comments. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Commissioners have any questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve ordinance number 5235.121 to amend UDC.
We have a first and a second motion to approve ordinance number 2025-235-1.19121. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Before you go on,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to take a 5-minute break, but I need a, if you agree, would someone make a motion?
Second.
We have a first and a second motion to take a 5-minute break. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Be back in 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Touch it.
Right. Just because you're in good faith. Yeah. Make this progress. So break your problems. Yeah. You know, where to find your time. Yeah. Yeah, it's, and it's like. Yep.
Want to make a motion to reconvene?
Second. We have a first and a second motion to reconvene our meeting. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Meeting back in session. Thank you for that break.
Public hearing and action on ordinance number 2025-235.122 to amend the Unified Development Code, Article 3, Subdivision Regulations, Section 3.1, General Provisions, Subsection 3.1.3, Subdivision Policy, to incorporate zoning requirements as a prerequisite to finalizing the plating process and dealing with related matters.
Thank you. This request or this text amendment is actually coming not as a result of a House bill being passed. There is some history, and as this board may remember, there was a case a couple meetings ago that came before this board where there was already improvements in place, and then they were requesting a rezoning be approved for what had already been done at that property. There is history behind that. Mr. Martinez more familiar with it, where that previous property was within the ETJ and then they annexed and it caused an issue. What we're essentially trying to do through this text amendment is be proactive in making it so zoning is approved prior to any investment being made by a land developer. This would protect both the board's authority and review process and the landowner from investing into something that may not get a zoning approval. So that's essentially what we're trying to do. And the text amendment is very minor in that change of the language, but it would have very important consequences or effects on how this board gets to review rezoning cases in the future. The example is shown on the slide here. Staff is recommending approval of this text amendment.
Comment?
I second that motion.
We have a first and a second motion to close public comments. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Does the board have any questions? If not, I'll mention.
It's a case-by-case basis, sir, with subdivision processes, because of the boundaries and the scope of the projects. But in theory, if a zoning has not been approved for that subdivision, it could potentially delay them.
Could you give us some history, Martin, on what happened in that case?
However, that's not the intent behind the text amendment here. Yeah.
Right, to answer the immediate question, that is definitely not the intent. They can still
Yeah.
submit concurrently both the subdivision and the rezoning request if need be.
Yes, sir.
However, to not put any unnecessary pressure on the board, for example, you, the Planning and Zoning Commission that approve zoning changes to allow a use, we don't want you guys to be in a position where there's already, let's say, a finalized subdivision like what happened a couple of months ago, which is the reason why we're doing this text amendment, where a subdivision was completely finalized and recorded, and then they came to request a zoning change to accommodate the use and the density that they were proposing for that residential subdivision. And so it really, in that particular scenario, it forces the board to approve it, because then if you don't approve it, you'll be leaving a developer with a significant investment and with no way to get a return on that investment, because the use or the density would not be permitted. So in that particular example, the subdivision that we're referencing, it started out in the ETJ. They wanted to move forward with the development while being reviewed by the county. Apparently, the county took a long time, or was taking a very long time to review. And once they were already quite far into the process, they decided to annex into the city because they were in a hurry to finalize this. The city's typically faster in review than the county. We finished the review. We did tell them, hey, when you annex into the city, you automatically come in as agriculture. You need to let us know what zoning designation you want so that we can run it concurrently with the petition to annex. However, if we don't receive something in writing by the developer, we cannot act on their behalf because again, it puts the city in a position of liability. So it moved forward without petition from the developer. It was annexed as agriculture, and therefore, when the subdivision was finalized, it continued having the agriculture designation that did not allow for the density and the single-family use that they were proposing. But again, to answer your question, it's not intended to delay the process or add. If we always, when we review a subdivision, tell them upfront what they need, that's part of the development process, to have a meeting with us, and that way they know everything that they will need to finalize the process. And if, because I cannot say that there won't be, I cannot guarantee that, but if there are delays, it would be simply because the developer did not do their part to correctly move forward with the project.
It should also be mentioned that this text amendment and most of or all of text amendments don't work retroactively. So this is for all future developments or requests moving forward.
Further questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I motion to approve changes to ordinance 2025-235.122.
A second.
We have a first and a second motion to approve ordinance number 2025-235.122. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearing in action on ordinance number 2025-235.123 to amend the Unified Development Code, Article 5, Supplemental Regulations, Section 5.3, Signs, subsection 5.3.4.c.3.c, pole or pylon sign, to strengthen the definition of on-premises pylon signs, establish updated size and elevation parameters, enhance limitations on illumination and changeable copy standards, and dealing with related matters.
Good evening. So again, the purpose of this is to establish new area and elevation parameters for on-premise pole or pylon signs. The overall goal of this is to limit size and elevation to reduce sign and light pollution in our city. So again, the purpose is a new framework for permissibility. This greatly reduces the total square footage that a pylon or pole sign would be allowed. And the definition also expands a little bit more. So I'll go into more detail here. We're just kind of backtracking a little bit. So the reason for the current provision, is there was kind of like a intro case, here at Texas Southmost College back in 2022. The property is zoned traditional neighborhood mixed use. And at that time, this sign was not permitted. The previous commission proposed a text amendment that allowed these in different districts. And so kind of going through that and what's been a result of that, staff has gone back and made proposals for new on-premise pylon signs. So this is a copy of the old UDC as it is. If you look closely, you'll see that the current definition is pretty minimal. It's about one sentence. And the maximum allowed square footage is up to 3 square feet per linear foot of property frontage. So that's a maximum of 630 square feet that a pole or pylon sign could be installed. The current provision has a limited definition of a pole or pylon sign, and the maximum sign height is 85 feet on highways and 50 feet on major arterials. Currently, they're allowed in your traditional neighborhood mixed use, your traditional neighborhood corridor commercial, regional center, light industrial, and heavy industrial. But they are only permitted along the frontage of highways and major arterials. Specific to the traditional neighborhood mixed use district, they're only permitted along International Boulevard. So that's specific to Southmost College. The rest of the signs, they are permitted within those districts, but only along highways and major arterials. So this new provision or proposal is to expand the definition of what an on-premise pylon sign is. So it goes into a little bit more detail about the construction methods and materials that are used to anchor or support the sign. It also, mentions that, any type of changeable copy element like your electronic readers or your electronic signs have to be compliant with the UDC and also the recommendations from TxDOT. With this new provision, the only change as far as districts is it is no longer allowed in the traditional neighborhood corridor district. It's still allowed in the other districts. However, it still only applies to highways and major arterials. One provision that has been added and is up to the council if they choose to accept the approval like that or choose to adjust it is the changeable copy. So the changeable copy refers specifically to like the electronic readers, on the pylon signs. So at this time, what we're of course, staff is recommending approval of the request, but it's up to the council if they would like to approve it with the changeable copy or without the changeable copy. Again, the changeable copy is, those pretty bright electronic reader signs that you would see. If you don't allow the changeable copy, then they would not be allowed to put those as supplementary to a pylon sign. Right, so you're not denying them flat out. It's just somebody could not add on an electronic component to it or a reader board to like a multi-tenant sign, for example. Again, the proposed provisions go into a smaller sign area. So in this case, it would be 1.5 square feet of combined property footage, and the maximum square footage would be 400 square feet. So we're reducing the maximum from 630 to 400 square feet. The maximum sign height would also be reduced. At a highway overpass, for example, it would be at 45 feet. At ground elevation, it'd be 35 feet. Again, previously, it would be 85 feet in the old ordinance. And then on major arterials, the maximum sign height would be 30 feet. So we're greatly reducing, the amount and how big these signs can be along the areas. This required spacing remains the same. It should be, about 200 feet apart at least. And then it goes into more detail about acceptable sign materials. Again, those are more for like building code compliance, making sure that they're sturdy, that they're going to last, that the materials are rust proof, and of course that they're anchored by some kind of masonry or brick. Yes, so staff is recommending approval of that ordinance.
Close public hearing.
Second.
We have a first and a second motion to close public comments. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Commissioners have any further questions or any questions? Not, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve as staff recommends.
Second.
We have a first and a second motion to approve ordinance number 2025-235.123. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearing and action on ordinance number 2025-235.124 to amend the Unified Development Code, Article 3, Subdivision Regulations, Section 3.1, General Provisions, Subsection 3.1.5, Exemptions to Platting, to incorporate plat exemption criteria for properties intended for single-family use and dealing with related matters.
So the purpose of this amendment is more specifically to reduce the time and financial burden for single-family property owners on single-family lots. Occasionally, we will have people come in and request to either rebuild the single-family home for whichever reason, or maybe make a small expansion to it. We'll come to find out that they'll have to subdivide the property to bring it into compliance. So this provision would give the planning director the capability to make somebody exempt from platting, from creating a one-lot subdivision for their single-family home, provided that they meet the criteria. That the subject property is and will be a single-family residence. The residence is being rebuilt or remodeled due to unforeseen circumstances like a fire or flood damage. The subject property has active water and wastewater connection with an authorized utility provider, has direct and independent access to water or wastewater, or has a direct access or direct and independent access to wastewater. So if it has, it's connected to city utilities, if it has a septic system, if it has a well, those are things that would qualify it for this exemption. Also, the boundary would need to be verified through a recording instrument such as a deed or a survey. And access to the subject parcel will remain, right? They'll need to provide access, a minimum of 12 feet of right-of-way for an easement, and at least a 30-foot wide easement to allow reasonable usage by passenger vehicles, so a driveway, right? So it'd have to at least allow that. And this again, would apply only to single family uses, right? If somebody wanted to convert it into a duplex, that would trigger, the subdivision requirement because it's a change of use. Yes, and so staff is recommending approval of this amendment.
So then anybody within the city that the single family, that their legal address, their legal description of their property meets and bounds? This is what you're talking about?
Right. If they can provide the survey that shows, exactly where their property begins and ends, it's really, again, just to not have them, require the whole subdivision requirement. We understand that it can get up there in price, and with, engineering costs going up over the years, that's something that we want to consider and really preserve some of these, longer standing single family homes that are in our city.
Public comment. We have a first and a second motion to close public comments. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. What is the wish of the commission? Do we have additional questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve as staff recommends.
We have a first and a second motion to approve ordinance number 2025-235.124. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearing in action on ordinance number 2025-235.125 to amend the Unified Development Code, Article 4, zoning regulations, Section 4.4, land uses, subsection 4.4.3.d, commercial uses, auto-related sales and service, to establish conditions and permit the sale of used motor vehicles under a franchise business model through a specific use permit within the identified zoning districts and dealing with related matters.
So the purpose, again, of this amendment is to distinguish between your small, independent-owned, non-franchised used motor vehicle sales and your nationally recognized chain of used vehicle dealerships that operate, more closely to like what you would see with a new car dealership. Just a rough example, like think of like Carvana or CarMax, where they are used cars at the end of the day, but their business model kind of lends itself to more of a new car dealership, right? They have their national branding, they have their own business model, they have, inventory that's constantly refreshed, right? So, there's an obvious distinction between the two, and that's what this definition attempts to do is distinguish those between the two. So if you recall, the council did approve used car dealerships within a certain area, right? So they were constricted to South Padre Island Highway and Southmost Road, right? And so what you see here on this map in that small little cutout is the concentration of these, smaller scale used car dealerships that are still concentrated to that area. So this amendment is not going to change those uses. They're still going to be required, or still be only permitted within that area. So they'll still be concentrated to that. What this does is it just draws that distinction between your franchise-owned used car dealerships and your kind of independently owned car dealerships, right? And so, again, you do need a special use permit, for either of these. And so what this text amendment does, not only does it define it, but it also requires a specific use permit within the corridor commercial, regional center, or light industrial zones. So these motor vehicle sales, these large scale national chains would still require a special use permit, but they can be beyond that, small Southmost or South Padre Island Highway group. Some of the things that kind of stand out about the definition, of these is there's a standardized sales process with these national chains. There's their own branding. They have a business model that's either franchised or not franchised. And typically they include refreshed inventory, on-site customer service, and similar to those of a new car dealership, right? Whereas your independently owned, don't necessarily have that business model. They're maybe not nationally recognized brands, and they don't maybe not refresh their inventory as often, right? They'll sell what they can, when they can. So yes, staff is recommending approval of that. So just a reminder, council's approving the definition of these franchise models, and then they're also approving that they'll be permitted with a special use permit in those districts.
Thank you.
Motion to close public hearing?
We have a first and a second motion to close public comments. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Does the board have questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve staff recommendation?
We have a first and a second motion to approve ordinance number 2025-235.125. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. I think that's the end of our items on the agenda. Before we adjourn, today is Commissioner Obell's last day with us. His term has expired. I just want to publicly thank him for his years of service and his input and his insightfulness. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's been an honor to serve with a whole bunch of commissioners over the years. I was appointed in 2019 by Mayor Mendez and reappointed by Commissioner De Los Santos. So I appreciate their vote of confidence. I think everything's going to go well under your leadership, Madam Chair. Thank you. And if I can ever be of service for anybody here, please don't be afraid to reach out. To the P&Z staff, you guys are top notch. Thank you so much for entertaining all my questions over the years. So thank you so much. Other than that, thank you. God bless.
Happy holidays, everyone. I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a first and a second motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Meeting adjourned, 7:34 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank y'all. Have a great night.
Thank you.